Okay, imagine this. A real crossroads of ancient thought. A place where the very foundations of reality were being debated in these, well, really vibrant, passionate conversations.
Mhm.
Today, on the deep dive, we're not just, looking from afar. We're actually trying to step back in time right into the bustling city of Medina. We want to sort of eavesdrop on these historical dialogues that honestly feel surprisingly relevant to our deepest questions. Questions about existence, creation, belief.
Yeah, it's striking how relevant they remain.
Exactly. We'll be immersing ourselves in some truly remarkable discussions today, focusing specifically on the prophet's interactions with two very distinct groups, the materialists and the idol worshippers.
Two fundamentally different outlooks, yet both engaging in these profound dialogues.
Right. And these aren't just like dusty relics from the past. They are, in so many ways, these incredible blueprints for understanding how people grapple with the biggest questions, the universe, where it came from, the nature of belief itself.
Mm.
What makes these exchanges so compelling, I think, is how they just cut right to the core of these philosophical divides we still see echoed today, just maybe in different forms.
Absolutely.
And just to be clear, our goal here isn't really to validate or invalidate these ancient arguments. It's more about understanding the thinking, the profound thought processes that shaped these historical dialogues, at least as they're presented in the accounts we're looking at.
And what's particularly striking, as you said, is precisely that universality, isn't it?
Yeah.
These discussions from Medina, they really illuminate philosophical challenges that, well, humanity is confronted across different civilizations, different millennia.
Yeah.
They're definitely more than just historical curiosities. They offer some really clear logical argumentation and rhetorical strategies, too, that frankly remain incredibly relevant for critical thinking, even in our modern world.
Right.
The way these arguments are put together gives us deep insight into different ways of understanding reality and, crucially, how those ways of understanding get challenged.
And that's exactly our mission today. For this deep dive, we're going to try and extract the core arguments,
Mm.
the rhetorical strategies used by, well, by everyone involved, and the sort of profound insights that pop up from these interactions.
Mhm.
We want to offer you, the listener, a kind of shortcut to understanding these foundational philosophical divides. And we're going to do that by trying to bring these ancient voices to life, using the actual phrases from the dialogues themselves whenever we can.
Yeah, hearing the actual words makes a huge difference. And ultimately, by understanding these historical perspectives and the intricate reasoning behind them, you really do gain a deeper appreciation for just how complex human belief systems can be.
Definitely.
And it also sharpens your own critical thinking skills, doesn't it?
Mm.
It helps you identify logical structures, maybe spot potential fallacies, and really discern the underlying assumptions in almost any argument you encounter.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's about seeing how these timeless questions get addressed and, well, what actually makes an argument compelling, whether it was thousands of years ago or, just yesterday.
Okay, so with that foundation laid, let's try and set the scene a bit more. Picture Medina, not just as this, growing political or religious center, but as a truly vibrant hub of ideas. It was a real melting pot, like a bustling marketplace, but for concepts, where all these diverse intellectual currents were converging. Think of it as this ancient intellectual crossroads,
Yeah, crossroads is a good word for it.
where people from totally different backgrounds with really wildly different worldviews would just naturally bump into each other and get into these robust, often quite challenging discussions about life's big questions.
And that historical context is just crucial, isn't it?
Hmm.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the broader tapestry of intellectual history in such a dynamic, evolving environment, a true crucible of early thought, as you put it. It wasn't just natural. It was almost, well, inevitable for groups with these fundamentally different worldviews to seek out discourse.
Right, it had to happen.
Exactly. This wasn't just about, winning an argument for the sake of it. It was really about defining reality, about understanding the fundamental truths of existence in a world that was changing rapidly around them.
Mm.
These encounters truly set the stage for these essential, really defining dialogues that give us this incredible window into the philosophical currents of that specific time and place.
And within this buzzing intellectual landscape, two groups really stood out, as we mentioned, both with very distinct ways of tackling these huge questions about existence. So on one side, we had the materialists.
Okay.
Now, these were folks who fundamentally denied the existence of God or really any unseen supernatural power at all. For them, the universe was purely physical, just
Yeah.
matter, an entirely matter-only reality.
A stark view, in a way.
Very. And then on the other side, you had the idol worshippers. Now, these individuals were quite different. They did acknowledge the divine, or divine presence, let's say.
Right, they weren't denying divinity outright.
No, but their understanding of it was, well, you could say distorted, maybe displaced. They essentially substituted the idea of an unseen creator with physical representations, actual tangible objects they could see and touch.
And crucially, objects they felt they could interact with, perhaps influence, in a kind of reciprocal relationship.
Exactly. So right from the start, we see this core difference, don't we? But also, there's a profound common thread there, too. One group, the materialists, just denied the creator entirely. They believed only in what they could physically sense. The other group, the idol worshippers, they acknowledged a divine power, but they replaced the true unseen creator, as understood in monotheism, with these physical things.
So in their own distinct ways.
Yeah, in their own ways, both turned away from the concept of a singular, unseen, transcendent creator. One group by just negating it completely, the other by kind of fragmenting it, localizing it into something tangible, something that they could perhaps manage or control.
Or felt they could manage, yeah.
Let's first dive a bit deeper into the materialist perspective, because their core belief, it presents this fascinating philosophical challenge that honestly still resonates today. Their central idea was that the universe had no beginning and no end, that it was eternal.
That's a huge claim.
It is. And it wasn't just a passing thought, it was the bedrock of their whole worldview, an all-encompassing philosophical stance. For them, everything in life, every single phenomenon we observe, could be explained by matter alone.
So no need for anything outside the physical system.
Precisely. Think about what that really means. Birth, death, movement, change, the vast sweep of cosmic events, all of it, in their view, was only natural processes without a creator.
Just matter in motion.
Just matter in motion. No divine hand, no guiding intelligence, no ultimate first cause needed. Just the perpetual, uncaused motion of matter itself. It's a very streamlined view, you could say. Self-contained.
Yeah, it echoes certain other philosophies, doesn't it? You mentioned the Greek atomists, maybe some forms of modern physicalism even. The idea that reality can be explained entirely by matter and its inherent properties without needing any external divine push or pull.
Exactly. Their universe was fundamentally, self-sustaining, maybe even deterministic in their eyes.
And their main argument for this, at least the one they presented, was rooted in direct observation, or rather, the lack of it. They argued, and this is key, that since no one had ever witnessed the universe being created or destroyed, it must have always been here.
If you didn't see it happen, it didn't happen.
Essentially, yes. It highlights their profound reliance on observable, empirical evidence as the sole judge of what's true. If you can't see it, they reasoned, you can't prove it. And if you can't prove a beginning, well, then it simply never occurred.
It sounds logical on the surface within its own rules.
It does. But this approach, while appearing sound within its own framework, had a critical philosophical weakness, one that the historical sources really pinpoint. They claimed certainty without proof.
Ah, okay. That's a crucial distinction.
That really is, isn't it?
Yeah.
They were asserting an absolute truth that the universe is eternal, based not on actually seeing eternity, which is impossible for us finite beings.
Right, how could you?
Exactly. But based on the absence of observation of a beginning, this creates a pretty powerful paradox. They admitted they had never seen creation, yet they insisted creation never happened.
Wow. Okay, so they admit they haven't seen the eternal nature, but they insist on it anyway because they haven't seen the opposite.
Precisely. It's a claim based on a lack of evidence, presented as evidence of a lack.
So their whole view then was really built only on what they could see with their eyes while ignoring anything beyond the physical world. It's a perspective that kind of caps reality at the immediately perceptible.
It creates a significant blind spot, doesn't it, for anything that might lie outside the scope of direct human-scale observation, or even outside the limits of our own experience of time.
Yeah, it effectively just dismisses as non-existent anything that falls outside their pretty narrow definition of knowledge, their epistemology.
And this sets up a really fundamental point for you, the listener, to consider. How do you weigh evidence? What actually constitutes proof in your own understanding of the world?
Good question.
Is the absence of evidence truly evidence of absence? Or is there a limit to what our senses can actually perceive? And therefore, is there a limit to what we can claim with absolute certainty based only on those senses, especially when we're talking about huge concepts like eternity or ultimate origins?
Yeah, that tension, that push and pull between what we can observe and claims about the unobservable, It's still central today, isn't it, in cosmology, philosophy of science?
Absolutely. From theories about the Big Bang to how we interpret quantum mechanics, it's a constant challenge to what philosophers sometimes call naive empiricism, the idea that only what we directly sense is real.
Okay, and now, this is where the ancient dialogue really sparks to life. We're going to try and step right into the actual exchange, bring the conversation to life as the prophet directly engages with these materialists, challenging their core assumptions with these really powerful, direct questions. It's almost like a masterclass in Socratic questioning.
Let's hear it.
So the materialists, they opened with a very strong, very declarative statement. They laid out their fundamental belief in why they were there. They declared, and I'm reading the words here, "We believe that the things in this world have no beginning and no end. The universe is eternal. That is why we came here to discuss this with you. If you agree, then we are correct. If not, we will oppose you."
Pretty direct, setting the terms immediately.
Very direct, no beating around the bush. The prophet, though, with what seems like characteristic calm and precision, just sought immediate clarification, just to make sure everyone was on the same page. He asked simply, "You say that the world and all things in it are eternal without beginning or end."
Just confirming their position.
Exactly. And the materialists affirmed it straight up. And importantly, they reiterated their observational basis. They stated, yes, this is our belief. We have never seen a beginning or an end to things. So we say they have always been and always will be.
Okay, sticking to their guns.
Yeah.
No observation equals eternity.
Right. And here comes the prophet's really powerful retort. He directly challenges their claim of certainty, the certainty based on an absence of observation. He doesn't just deny their premise outright, but he cleverly turns their own logic against them. He asks, have you yourselves seen eternity?
Ah, okay. Shifting the focus from seeing the beginning to seeing eternity itself.
Precisely. He continues, if you claim that, then it means you must have existed forever, from the very start and into the endless future to witness it. But that is impossible. Everyone knows such a claim cannot be true.
Wow, that puts them in a logical bind, doesn't it? To claim they know it's eternal based on observation, they'd have to be eternal observers.
No. Exactly. And faced with this, well, pretty unassailable logical challenge, the materialists had to back down slightly. They admitted, we do not say that we have actually seen eternity.
A crucial concession.
Huge. And the prophet immediately picked up on this admission, skillfully highlighting their logical flaw. He says, then by your own words, you admit that you have not seen it. So how can you claim it with certainty? He goes on, you neither saw a beginning nor saw an endlessness, yet you choose only one side and declare the world eternal. That is not a fair judgment.
That's incredibly sharp. It doesn't just refute their claim, it exposes the limits of their whole way of knowing, their epistemology.
Yeah.
It brings up this really important question about the burden of proof, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The prophet skillfully highlights the fundamental difference between just an unproven assertion and an actual verified fact.
Right. They were asserting something huge based on not seeing something.
Exactly. They were claiming certainty for a negative, that something didn't happen, a beginning, based on their lack of positive observation. The prophet's argument just exposes the logical inconsistency of claiming absolute certainty about an eternal past without having personally witnessed or experienced that eternity.
It forces them to face the limits of their own observational framework.
Absolutely. And the sort of inherent circularity in saying, well, I haven't seen a beginning, therefore there isn't one.
It's like, yeah, demanding to see the wind itself, to believe it exists, even while you're feeling it blow your hair back. And he didn't just stop there. He then shifted tactics, using this brilliant, easily observable analogy to further unravel their premise. He grounded the abstract idea in something undeniably concrete.
Okay, what was the analogy?
He asked them, tell me, do you see the cycle of day and night?
Simple enough. Everyone sees that.
Right. The materialists readily agreed it's a universal daily thing. They said, yes, we do. Then the prophet followed up, directly linking this everyday cycle to their belief in eternity. He asked, do you believe day and night have always been and will always be?
Applying their eternal principle to this specific phenomenon.
Exactly. And again, the materialists affirmed, sticking to their worldview, that everything is eternal. They replied, yes.
Consistent, at least.
But then the prophet introduced the critical question, the one that highlights an inherent contradiction in the nature of day and night if they were truly eternal and uncreated. He pressed them. Can day and night exist together at the same time?
Ah, the mutual exclusivity. Clever.
Right. The materialists, bound by just looking at reality, had to deny this. They said, no, that is not
Of
possible.
course not. One replaces the other.
And this was the opening the prophet needed for his powerful deduction. He reveals, as he argues, the non-eternal nature of these cycles, he says. Exactly. When one slowly fades away, the other takes its place. This shows they are not eternal, but renewed in turn one after the other, so do not deny the power of God.
Wow. Using the very sequence and transition as evidence against eternity and for renewal, which implies creation.
Precisely. And he pressed the point even further, tying it back directly to the idea of a beginning, emphasizing the logical consequence of any sequential process. He asks, now, do day and night have a beginning or no beginning?
Forcing them to choose.
Yes, he continues. If you say they have a beginning, then you agree with me that they are created. If you say they have no beginning, then you are saying that something which clearly passes away has no starting point. But that is impossible. Since they pass away, they must also have had a beginning.
That's a brilliant piece of reasoning. If something ends or passes away, it logically must have had a beginning. You can't have an ending without a start.
Exactly.
So this analogy, it's really a masterful strategic move in argumentation, isn't it? It takes this observable, undeniable thing, the cycle of day and night, and uses it to directly challenge their core premise of an eternal, uncreated universe.
Yeah, it's very grounded.
Totally. The cycle itself implies a process, right? Creation, cessation, transition. It argues powerfully against this idea of a static, uncreated, unchanging eternity. If something comes and goes, if it has a sequence, it just necessarily implies a starting point and a process of renewal rather than some unchanging eternal state.
It connects the abstract to the concrete.
Exactly. It's not just a nice metaphor. It's actually an early form of what philosophers later called the argument from contingency, or maybe even hints of a teleological argument, suggesting that the order, the sequence, the interdependence we see points towards a necessary, uncaused cause, rather than just an accidental, eternal state of being. It really anchors this huge abstract concept in a reality everyone can see and understand.
And he brought it on home with one final, really elegant analogy. This one underscores the fundamental interconnectedness and therefore the contingency of the world. He moves from time cycles to the actual spatial arrangement of things. The prophet concluded this line of argument by saying, and look at the world. All its parts depend on each other, like the parts of a building: mud, bricks, stones, and straw, all joined together to stand.
The building analogy.
Yeah. He continues, if all things depend on one another, how can they be eternal? For if they were eternal, they would not need each other at all.
Ah, okay. That connects directly to that philosophical concept we mentioned, contingency. The idea that something relies on something else for its existence, rather than just existing independently on its own.
Right. If it needs something else, it can't be eternal in itself.
Precisely. If everything in existence is interdependent, relying on something else for its structure, its function, its very being, then it just cannot be self-existent or eternal in the way the materialists were claiming. A truly eternal entity would have to be utterly independent, needing nothing else whatsoever to exist.
Makes sense.
So the prophet, through this simple but really profound building analogy, is pointing towards a necessary, uncaused cause, something foundational that doesn't depend on anything else for its own existence, but upon which all these contingent, dependent things rest.
Like the foundation of the building, maybe?
In a sense, yes, but even more fundamental. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is a core philosophical argument that has just echoed down through the centuries in various forms. From ancient Greek thought right up to modern cosmological debates, always questioning the ultimate source of existence in a universe full of interconnected, dependent parts. It's a really powerful challenge to their view of a self-sufficient, matter-only cosmos.
Okay, so having really grappled with the materialists and their denial of a creator, the prophet then turned his attention, according to the sources, to this other, equally fundamental, yet very distinct challenge to the idea of a singular, unseen God. The idol worshippers.
Right, a different angle entirely.
Totally different. If the materialists looked at the world and saw only matter, the idol worshippers saw something else, but something still profoundly limited from the prophet's perspective. As we said, they did not deny the existence of the divine, but they distorted it. They weren't atheists in the modern sense, but their understanding of divinity was seen as deeply flawed.
Not denial, but misrepresentation.
Exactly. Instead of focusing on eternal matter, their practice was centered around these carved figures from stone, wood, or metal that they actually treated as gods.
Mm.
These weren't just, decorations, they were objects of intense veneration. People believed they were imbued with real power, real significance.
Right. They were seen as conduits, maybe even embodiments of divine power, tangible focal points for people's spiritual hopes and fears.
Yeah. And their motivations, while they seem deeply rooted in this desire for a tangible connection, maybe even perceived control, a very human impulse perhaps, to make the abstract divine feel concrete and accessible.
That makes sense. They believed these idols could bring protection, fortune, or blessings. They linked the effectiveness of their prayers, their offerings, directly to these physical objects. It wasn't just a philosophical stance, it was deeply pragmatic, wasn't it? Tied intimately to their daily lives, their fears about crops, health, safety, and their hopes for prosperity.
And it often had a tribal or local flavor too, right?
Yes, absolutely. Their worship was often tribal or localized. Specific idols were often linked to natural forces like the sun, the moon, or the stars, or maybe connected to specific ancestors or tribal guardians. It feels like an attempt to localize, to personify, maybe even to control the vast unseen powers they sensed around them, or at least to secure the favor of specific deities tied to their particular group or place.
So, the identified problem with this perspective, as the sources make clear, was essentially that they confused symbols with reality.
Ah, the symbol becoming the thing itself.
Exactly. It's a critical distinction, and one that, let's be honest, often gets blurred in human experience, right? They were using representations, but these representations had somehow become the focus of worship themselves. They overshadowed the ultimate reality they were perhaps meant to symbolize, assuming they symbolized anything real in the first place from the prophet's view. The symbol had basically replaced the source.
And this leads straight to the fundamental logical flaw identified in the critique. Their idols could not move, speak, or create, yet they treated them as divine masters.
Yeah, that's a stark disconnect.
It really is. The gap between the inert, obviously created nature of the idols themselves and the boundless power people were attributing to them was huge. They were worshiping objects that were demonstrably passive, dependent, literally created by human hands.
Right.
Yet simultaneously claiming these very objects held the power to grant favors, avert disasters, or influence the entire cosmos. In doing so, they really missed the truth of the one God. They were projecting divine attributes onto inanimate objects.
And effectively diminishing the creator.
Yes, diminishing the true nature of the Creator by fragmenting it into countless, ultimately powerless forms, substituting the truly transcendent, the ultimate source, with things that were immanent, limited, and dependent.
And this really brings us to a crucial point for you, the listener, to think about. It feels like a timeless human tendency. How easily can symbols be mistaken for the reality they represent, or even mistaken for the ultimate reality itself? Think about how we use symbols in our own lives, right? Flags, logos, religious icons, even money. And the potential for those symbols to sometimes overshadow the deeper meaning or the actual value or truth they're intended to point towards.
It's true. It's easy to get attached to the symbol.
Yeah. It seems like a timeless human tendency to seek tangible representations, which can then accidentally become an end in themselves, rather than just a pointer to something greater, something unseen.
Now, interestingly, while our sources give us that detailed back and forth with the materialists, they don't provide quite the same verbatim dialogue with the idol worshippers.
Right, we don't have the direct quotes in the same way.
But we can reasonably reconstruct the likely arguments, can't we?
Yeah.
Drawing from the core critique of their beliefs that is documented. We can imagine the prophet engaging with them, maybe using that same kind of incisive, logical questioning we saw him use with the materialists.
Oh, okay, let's try that. How might an exchange like that unfold, hypothetically?
Well, you could imagine the idol worshippers starting by stating their reverence for their deities, perhaps pointing to the figures they'd carved, much like the materialists laid out their premise first.
Okay.
They might say something like, "These are our gods. They protect us. They bless our lands. We pray to them. They answer our calls. They connect us to the powers of the sun, the moon, the forces that govern our lives."
Right, stating their belief and its perceived benefits.
Exactly. And the prophet, again, would likely seek to clarify their understanding first, gently leading them to examine the actual nature of these objects they revered. He might ask, "You say these figures are your gods. Tell me, do these gods of stone and wood create the sun that warms you? Or the rain that nourishes your crops? Did they carve themselves from the earth?"
Pointing out the idol's lack of creative power compared to nature itself.
Precisely. The idol worshippers, perhaps caught a bit off guard, would have to acknowledge the obvious, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Well, no. The sun rises and sets as it always has, and we, with our own hands, we shape.
Powerful, simple questions.
Right. It would force them to confront the actual impotence of their idols. If the objects of their worship were themselves inert, fashioned by human hands, how could they possibly possess the power to protect or bless? How could they be divine masters if they were incapable of even the simplest actions?
It exposes the gap between belief and reality.
Exactly. He might even draw a contrast with the grandeur of the natural world itself, saying something like, look at the vastness of the sky, the endless flow of the rivers, the sheer diversity of life all around you. Can these silent, motionless figures truly be the source of such immense and intricate creation?
That hypothetical dialogue really illustrates a key strategy, doesn't it? It's like an argument from impotence or lack of agency.
I think that's a good way to put it. If an entity cannot act independently, cannot create, sustain, or even perceive, then logically it cannot be a god, at least not the ultimate god, the creator.
Definitely.
The contrast between the grandeur and active power of creation, like the sun, rain, life itself, and the inert, passive nature of the idols, would be absolutely central. He would be forcing them to critically evaluate the attributes they ascribe to their deities versus the observable reality of those objects.
Reconciling belief with observable fact.
Exactly. It highlights the inherent contradiction in worshiping the created rather than the creator. It's a powerful appeal to reason, asking them to align their beliefs with the evidence of their own senses regarding the idols themselves.
It's fascinating how the approach adapts, isn't it? With the materialist, who relied solely on empirical observation, he used that same observation, like day and night, to challenge their conclusions about eternity. And with the idol worshippers, he also uses empirical observation, but this time focusing on the limitations of what they physically see in their idols, their inertness, their createdness, to challenge the divine power they attributed to them.
That's a very insightful point. Using their own preferred mode of evidence, but turning it to reveal inconsistencies or limitations within their worldview. It's a very sophisticated rhetorical approach.
So let's try to summarize these two distinct approaches we've explored. We can say, basically, that while the materialists rejected faith completely, the idol worshippers multiplied false gods.
Two different paths away from the same point, in a sense.
Exactly. One group chose denial, just asserting that nothing beyond matter existed. The other chose replacement, substituting the concept of the true creator with countless lifeless images and fragmented, localized powers.
And this is where we can really draw that profound common thread between these beliefs, even though they seem so different on the surface. Despite their different starting points, different methods, both groups, in their own unique ways, turned away from the reality of the creator. The materialists did it by denying him entirely, just removing any concept of divine origin or purpose from their picture of the universe, embracing a purely materialistic view. The idol worshippers, on the other hand, turned away by replacing him. They replaced the creator with these fragmented, ultimately powerless entities, and in doing so, they diminished and misinterpreted the creator's true nature. They mistook the created for the creator.
So one removed the transcendent entirely.
Yes. And the other reduced the transcendent to something immanent, tangible, and ultimately dependent.
Wow. That is such a powerful insight. And it really prompts us to think about the enduring relevance of all this, doesn't it? How do these ancient debates actually reflect ongoing human tendencies?
Yeah.
What do they teach us about the diverse ways humanity seeks meaning and truth, or sometimes actively avoids it? Are there modern parallels to these kinds of denials or distortions of ultimate reality?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see these kinds of intellectual and spiritual challenges playing out constantly, just maybe in different language, different contexts.
Right, different packaging.
Exactly. It makes you think about the underlying motivations, the cognitive processes that drive different belief systems, really regardless of the historical era. The fundamental human impulse to explain existence is always there, whether it's through purely physical mechanisms or through tangible representations of the divine. It's a constant. The materialist approach, you could say, prefigures certain kinds of scientific materialism we see today, which, while incredibly valuable for understanding the physical world, sometimes extends its claims beyond the strictly empirical realm into areas like consciousness or ultimate purpose, effectively denying anything that can't be reduced to matter and energy.
Okay, I see that parallel.
And the idol worshiper tendency. the tendency to create tangible objects of veneration, or perhaps more broadly, to latch on to symbols. You can see echoes of that in various forms today, too, where symbols or traditions, or maybe even charismatic figures, become ends in themselves, overshadowing the deeper unseen truths they might have originally represented.
Yeah, the symbol becoming more important than the substance.
Precisely. It's a reminder that the challenge isn't just about what we believe, but maybe more importantly, how we arrive at those beliefs and what fundamental assumptions underpin our whole understanding of reality.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for us today? We've embarked on this really fascinating deep dive, haven't we, into the intellectual landscape of ancient Medina. We explored the specific arguments, the logical frameworks of both the materialists and the idol worshippers.
Mhm.
And we've seen the prophet's incredibly logical, quite accessible responses. Responses that directly challenge their core assumptions,
Hmm.
often using everyday observations and really incisive reasoning, effectively dismantling their premises, often from within their own logical structures.
And what's particularly illuminating here, I think, is that these aren't just, historical footnotes gathering dust in a textbook. These dialogues provide genuinely powerful frameworks for critical thinking, frameworks that are just as applicable now as they were back then.
Right, they're practical tools.
They really are. They teach us how to rigorously evaluate claims, how to spot logical inconsistencies, how to understand the foundational premises, the starting points of vastly different worldviews, and also how to effectively articulate a counter-argument.
Yeah.
The strength of these historical arguments, I believe, lies in their ability to resonate with universal human experience and reason. That's what makes them timeless examples of philosophical inquiry.
Absolutely. These ancient conversations, far from being just locked in the past, they serve as living exercises in reasoning. Exercises that can genuinely help you, the listener, navigate the incredibly complex information landscape we live in today.
Mhm.
The core challenge wrestled with in these ancient debates, discerning truth, understanding the nature of reality, identifying logical fallacies, that challenge remains incredibly relevant, especially as we encounter so many different perspectives and claims in our own time.
From scientific theories to philosophical ideas, social narratives, personal beliefs.
Exactly. They equip us with these robust intellectual tools to question, to analyze, and hopefully to seek deeper understanding, always pushing us beyond just superficial agreement or disagreement.
Which brings us nicely, I think, to a final thought we want to leave you with, something to perhaps mull over long after this deep dive concludes.
Okay.
What assumptions do you hold about the nature of reality or truth? And maybe reflect on how much of that is based on your own direct observation versus perhaps accepted belief, or maybe even, like the materialists, based on the absence of perceived evidence.
A challenging question to end on, examining our own foundations.
Exactly. It's a question that builds directly on the critical thinking we've explored today, inviting you to reflect on your own foundational assumptions about the world you inhabit and how you know what you know.